We are all in our Be a Scientist notebook, and we're going to do our next page, Keeley introduction. And we are on page 106. What page are we on?
106.
On page 106, we see temperature drop. And we see another little scenario and some different ideas between Mr. and Mrs. Collins. So in this one today, Mr. and Mrs. Collins live in Tampa, Florida. Do we know where Tampa, Florida is?
Yes.
Yep, our social studies and all of our geography work this year has told us we know exactly where Florida is. They enjoy the warm winter weather. So do they have winters like us?
No.
Nope. The average temperature in February is a mild 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Third graders, it was like 70 degrees last week, and that's what they get in February. Usually for us in February, it's freezing cold, right? So that's just letting you know the temperature difference between Tampa, Florida, and Nebraska. This year, there was a week of very cold temperatures. It dropped to 38 degrees in one day and almost snowed. Mr. and Mrs. Collins were surprised that it got so cold. This is what they said, and I want you to think of who you agree with more in their thinking. Mr. Collins said, "Wow, this is a big change in our weather." Mrs. Collins said, "Wow, this is a big change in our climate."
What is climate?
What a great question. We're going to get into that throughout the week. He said, "What does climate mean?" We're going to get into that throughout this week. But Mr. and Mrs. Collins have some different thinking about what happened, don't they? One thinks it was a big change in weather. One thinks it was a big change in climate. Who do you agree with? On that first line on that page at the bottom, who do you agree with? You're going to write Mr. Collins or Mrs. Collins, and then you're going to explain why you agree with that person. Go ahead and take a moment to write who you agree with and why you agree with that person. I want to see from you guys if you agree with Mr. Collins today that it's a big change in the weather. Go ahead and stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Exactly half of you agree with Mr. Collins that it's a change in the weather. So go ahead and stand up if you agree with Mrs. Collins. I'm change the movement for everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Aiden, you didn't pick anybody. Who did you pick today? Who do you agree with?
Neither.
Well, it's one of them. Oh, it's one of them. I know, bummer. You'll figure it out throughout the weeks of who we agree with. So we're about 50-50 in our classroom. A little more maybe have ended up choosing weather. Good. Go ahead and have a seat. Throughout the course of the next few days, we're going to start to see the difference between weather and climate. Okay? We're going to talk about what weather is versus what the climate is somewhere and talk about it a little bit. But, so that's kind of confusing to answer this one because do you feel like you need to understand what climate is to be able to say it's a change in the climate?
Yeah.
We have a good idea of what weather is, but we need to get a little more and to be able to tell the difference between the two when we're talking about it. We will revisit this, but until then, let's go ahead and go to the next page where we have our Science in Our World. So page 107, let's go ahead and look at Science in Our World. Fabulous, thank you. On that page, we're going to be using these two pictures here. Beautiful pictures, right? We've talked about this before with Science in Our World, but science often begins when someone makes an observation about something. An observation when you're just looking, you're using your brain, you're noticing what you see, and you're going to be thinking about what is happening in that specific thing. So during our weather unit, we looked at those weather pictures we revisited today. Today, we're going to be looking at weather and climate, so we're looking at these two pictures here. And we want to be thinking about what do we notice. So up here, we have these two photos, and I want us to think about a few questions first. So what do you see in these two photos? Joey, what do you see in the photos? He sees snow in one of them, right? One of them has a lot of snow in it. Grayson, what do you see? Lots of trees. Did both of them have trees?
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Apollo?
One's hot and one's cold.
Looks like one might be hot, one might be cold. Very good. Trying to make my shadow show up on there. Charlie, what do you notice?
One green and one white.
We have a lot of green in one picture, a lot of white in the other. That was going to be that snow versus no snow. Kyler.
One looks like it could be in Texas, and the other looks like it could be in Colorado.
Ooh, he's making predictions of where it is. Maybe Texas, Colorado? Okay. Okay, I have another question for you to think about. I want you to turn and talk to your neighbor about this one. What do you notice about the weather in each of these two pictures? Turn and talk. You might have to scoot back a little bit so that you're a little closer to here. Three, two, one. What do you wonder about what you see in these photos? What questions, what kind of wonderments do you have in your head? What pops in your brain? Alexa, start us off.
The second photo has snow and that one has
So you notice it's snowy and it has, this one has the grass, that we said? Those are fabulous, but what do you wonder about the pictures? What questions kind of come to your brain? Why does this one have no weather in it? Now, I definitely think there's some weather, but maybe not like a severe weather pattern coming through. Great. Zena, what do you have? What questions? What do you wonder about these?
Well, in the first photo, I wonder what the white stuff is.
Oh, in the background, what that white stuff is?
Yeah.
That's a good question. That's a great wonder. She's looking beyond just what we see, and she's wondering what that white stuff is in the background of this first picture. Good. Brock.
In the second picture, does it always snow there? How far is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in this picture, is it always like this? Is it always snowing? Is it hard to live in a place like that? Those are really good questions. Grayson, what's coming to your mind? What do you wonder?
How lucky were the clouds for that much snow to come out of the second picture?
That's fabulous. How heavy did those clouds have to be to have this much snow come out? And I'm wondering how, building off of Grayson's, I'm wondering how long it took to get that way, right? Was it an overnight thing? Or is, like Brock predicted, something that just is all the time there? Viola.
What is the climate in the
What is the climate? So trying to think back to the difference between that weather and climate. Very good. What is the climate in the pictures? And Emery. Where do they take place? So you earlier, Kyler made a prediction of where they could take, where these could be. Emery's wondering now exactly where are they. And one last one, Chloe.
So in that one, in the second picture,
Uh-huh.
I see clouds, but in the other picture, I don't really see clouds.
Good. So they're kind of like this one. You see clouds?
Yeah.
They kind of look like those gray clouds up top, right? And this one, we really don't see any. Great. Third graders, these are wonderful things that we're noticing about these pictures here. We are going to, again, come back to these just like we did the weather pictures in another day. If we turn our focus to the bottom of that page, we're going to look a little bit about our STEM to career connection. Sound good? So that's where we're going to shift our focus to the bottom of page 107. Go ahead and take a moment to pre-read a little bit about a hydrologist. What is the